Chicago is about to blow up. A veteran star just dropped a bomb about a teammate who's been in the hot seat, while a key rookie finally returned from an injury that had the whole organization worried. And if that wasn't enough, there are two trade proposals that could completely change this franchise's future. Ready to find out what's really going on at Hollis Hall? Subscribe now, because what's coming is going to shake Navy and Orange to its roots. I can't believe what DJ Moore just confessed about Dandre Swift. The Bears are in full training camp, and the statements coming out of Hollis Hall are going to change everything you thought you knew about this team. And you know what's the craziest part? It's just the beginning of a week that's going to define Chicago's future. I've said this since the first day I saw Moore arrive at this organization. This guy doesn't talk just to talk. When he opens his mouth about a teammate, you better listen. And what he just said about Swift is absolutely devastating for everyone who's been criticizing our running back. Moore went straight to the point when he spoke about Swift. Since I've known Swift, he's always been the same. I think some of the criticism is affecting him, and he wants to be the best he can be this year, and he's going out there to prove it. Did you hear that? Some of the criticism is affecting him. I think this is exactly what Swift needed to wake up. But do you really understand the weight of these words coming from DJ Moore? This is a receiver who played with Christian McCaffrey in Carolina, who's seen elite runners firsthand, who understands exactly what it takes to succeed in this league. Moore isn't the kind of player who defends someone just out of courtesy. If he's publicly defending Swift, it's because he sees something the rest of us aren't seeing. And let me explain to you exactly why these words from Moore are so significant. He says Swift has always been the same since he's known him. Do you get what that means? It means Swift's consistency as a person and professional hasn't changed despite all the criticism. It means Moore sees a player who's not crumbling under pressure, but using it as fuel. I've been following this Swift situation all offseason, and I can tell you the criticisms have been brutal. Fans have questioned his speed, his vision, his ability to be the main back. Some even suggested it was a mistake to sign him. But Moore is seeing something different in practices, something we can't see from the outside. And you know what I love about Swift's response when asked where he wants to? Improve? His answer was one word: everything. Especially when the numbers aren't where they should be statistically, even though the scrimmage yards, 79.1, were the best of my career. But we won 4 or 5 games, 5-12. I can't sit here and talk about anything positive. We all have something to work on, something to improve. When the team's success is a priority, everything else will fall into place. That's the mentality we need. Swift isn't blaming the offensive line, the system, or the coordinators. He's taking full responsibility and saying everything needs to improve. When was the last time you heard a Bear talk like that? But here's what really excites me about this situation. Swift rushed for 959 yards last year, just 41 yards shy of 1,000. But his average scrimmage yards per game were the best of his entire career. Do you understand what that means? It means Swift was more involved in the offense than ever before, not just as a runner but as a receiver. And now imagine this: Swift motivated by criticism, working with Ben Johnson, who knows exactly how to maximize dynamic running backs' talents, protected by an offensive line that included Joe Thuney, one of the best guards in the league, Jonah Jackson, proven in Detroit, and Drew Dalman at center. Do you see the explosive potential we have here? Offensive coordinator Declan Doyle is already talking about making the running game 3-dimensional. Do you know what that means? Not just running between the tackles, not just sweeps outside, but a complete ground attack that can attack any part of the field at any time. And when Swift was asked about the excitement of running behind those improved lines, according to reports, Swift smiled before answering. "I can't wait," Swift said. "I'm excited." That's not the response of a player who's broken or demoralized. It's the response of someone who knows he's about to show what he's really made of. But let me take you deeper into this DJ Moore and Swift story, because there's something absolutely fascinating here. Moore mentioned that he's close to him in the locker room and has watched how Swift has developed as a football player and as a human being. Do you understand the importance of that? Moore isn't just talking about Swift the player. He's talking about Swift the person. He's talking about character, growth, personal development. When a respected veteran speaks like this about a teammate, it tells me Swift hasn't just been working on his physique and skills, but he's also grown as a leader in person. And here's something you need to understand about locker room dynamics. Moore didn't have to say anything. No one shoved a microphone in his face and forced him to defend Swift. He chose to speak. He chose to publicly back his teammate. It tells me Moore sees something special happening with Swift that's worth defending. But do you know what's most important about all this? It's that we have a player in Swift who fully understands that individual success means nothing without team victories. When he says, "We won 4 or 5 games, I can't talk about anything positive," that's the exact mindset we need from our backfield. Chicago is about to open the season against Minnesota on September 8th, and I guarantee you that Swift will be ready to prove all those criticisms wrong. With Moore backing him, with Johnson designing plays specifically for him, and with that improved offensive line protecting him, I believe we're about to see a version of D'Andre Swift that will surprise the entire league. If that excites you, wait until you hear what's happening with our rookie receiver. Luther Burden III is finally back on the field with full gear. And I say this without exaggeration. The silence around Burden's injury has been absolutely deafening for the last 8 weeks. And we fans had every right to be extremely worried. Think about it for a second. We drafted Burden hoping he'd be an immediate piece in Ben Johnson's offense. A rookie receiver who missed all of June's OTAs, who came to training camp still dealing with that mysterious soft tissue injury, who couldn't practice with full gear while all the other rookies were already adapting to the next level. Do you understand the pressure that creates? But here's what really matters. According to Dave, our trusted insider covering the Bears, Luther Burden isn't just in Monday's practice. He's fully geared up with pads and fully participating. This marks the first time we see the top rookie receiver in the organization fully participating since he suffered that soft tissue injury earlier in the offseason. And do you know why this is so significant? Because Ben Johnson was crystal clear last week when he spoke about Burden's situation. Johnson explained that they initially expected Burden to be ready for the start of training camp, but that the spring soft tissue injury extended much more than they anticipated. Johnson emphasized they were handling the situation day by day and expressed optimism that Burden would be back on the field soon. And they were right. This is exactly the kind of cautious and professional management we needed to see from this organization. Do you remember how we handled injuries in previous administrations? It was all rush, premature returns, and players who ended up worse because we rushed them back into action. But let me explain exactly why this injury has been so concerning and why Burden's return is so crucial to our offensive plans. Burden's injury saga extends roughly 2 months, starting in May. He missed all of June's OTAs due to the same issue. That means he missed critical reps during the most important period for a rookie to adapt to NFL level. Ryan Poles also weighed in on the situation this week on the Hoge and John show, saying nothing major in terms of concerns with Luther Burden. He was dealing with a soft tissue issue in the spring. He came back in shape and ready to go. That's exactly what we needed to hear from the GM. But do you really understand what ready to go means coming from Ryan Poles? Poles isn't the kind of executive who exaggerates or makes promises he can't keep. When he says Burden is ready, it means they've done all the medical due diligence, fully evaluate the situation, and are confident Burden can contribute without risk of a re-injury. And here's what really excites me about the timing of this return. We're entering the second week of training camp, which is traditionally when rookies start finding their rhythm and begin to stand out. Burden didn't miss the first weeks completely, but he did miss the full gear reps that are absolutely critical to developing chemistry with the quarterbacks and fully understanding the system. But let me give you some perspective. on why we shouldn't be too worried about the lost time. Yes, missing OTAs and the first critical reps of camp can impact a rookie's transition to the NFL. But let's keep some things in mind. First, Burden has DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and Keenan Allen as mentors in that receiver room. Second, Ben Johnson has a proven reputation for adapting his system to his players' specific talents rather than forcing players to adapt to a rigid system. And third, and perhaps most importantly, is that Chicago doesn't need Burden to be WR1 immediately. With Moore, Odunze, and Allen already established, Burden can take the time he needs to fully adapt without the pressure of having to produce immediately or the team suffering. But do you know what excites me most about finally seeing Burden in full pads? It's that now we can really start evaluating how he fits into Johnson's offense. We've been speculating for months about how Johnson is going to use Burden's dynamic talent, but until now it's been pure theory. Now we can finally see if Burden can handle the slot, if he can run all the routes on the tree, if he can be the versatile weapon we believe he can be. And let me tell you something about the timing of this return that's absolutely perfect. We just entered the camp phase where they practice in full pads, where the contact is more physical, where you can really evaluate if a player is ready for the NFL level. Burden returning just at this moment means he's going to have exactly the kind of reps he needs to prepare for the regular season. The reality is that as time goes on, concern naturally grows. Missing OTAs and critical camp reps might impact his transition to the NFL. For Chicago, the priority has always been to keep him healthy before the gap becomes a problem. But today's development, with Burden in full pads and back on the field, marks a definite step in the right direction. And you know what tells me that Johnson and Poles have been so cautious with Burden? It tells me they see something special in him, something so valuable they aren't willing to risk it for a few extra reps in July. That's exactly the long-term mentality we need from this organization. Imagine for a moment what it means to have Burden healthy and ready to contribute. A receiver who can line up in any position, who can create separation from the slot, who can be a reliable target for Caleb Williams in crucial situations. With Moore providing the experience, Odunze providing the size and ability to make contested plays, and Allen providing route precision, Burden can be that versatile piece that makes the whole offense unpredictable. But here's what really will be interesting to watch in the coming weeks: how Johnson is going to integrate Burden into the system now that he's healthy. Will he start slowly, giving him specific play packages? Or will he throw him straight into the fire and expect his natural talent to adapt quickly? I think we're going to see a gradual but steady approach. Johnson isn't the type of coordinator who rushes things, but he also understands that Burden's talent is too special to keep him on the bench for long, especially considering we need all the receiver depth possible to compete in the NFC North. Burden's return also means we can finally start evaluating what kind of chemistry he can develop with Caleb Williams. So far, Williams has mostly been working with Moore, Odunze, and Allen. Now he can start developing that connection with Burden. That could be absolutely crucial during the season. But do you know what's most important about all this? It's that we finally have good news about a key player after weeks of uncertainty. As fans, we deserve clarity on Burden's situation, and now we have it. Not only is he healthy, but he's fully participating and ready to contribute. And if you think those are big news, wait until you hear about these trade proposals circulating. There are 2 trade proposals circulating that could literally change this franchise's entire direction. And I've got to be brutally honest with you. One of these ideas shows a deep understanding of Chicago's real needs, while the other is so disconnected from reality, it makes me wonder if the person who wrote it even understands football. The first proposal comes from Pro Football Network in an article suggesting 10 trades for NFL teams, and it has the Bears included twice. The first suggestion is to trade Cole Kmet to Miami for a 3rd-round pick. I'll tell you this without reservation. This is one of the stupidest ideas I've heard in years, and I'm going to explain exactly why. Did anyone suggesting this even take? 5 minutes to research the offensive system Ben Johnson wants to implement in Chicago? Because if they had, they'd immediately know that Johnson plans to use 12 personnel formations heavily. And Cole Kmet is absolutely essential for that to work effectively. Let me explain exactly what 12 personnel means in Johnson's system. It means 2 tight ends on the field at the same time, allowing for incredible offensive versatility. You can run power runs with extra blocking, create nightmare matchups with 2 receiving tight ends, keep the defense guessing whether you're going to run or pass on every play. But do you know what's the biggest problem with this proposal? It's that tight end in Johnson's system isn't just one position. It's really 2 completely different positions. You've got the wide tight end, who is the inline tight end who primarily needs to be a blocker, but also capable of receiving. And then, you've got the F tight end, which is more like a big receiver who can line up in different positions. Cole Kmet is perfect for that wide position. He's 6'6", 246 pounds, has the necessary blocking skills, and has proven he can be a reliable target in the passing game. And the proposal is to trade him for a 3rd-round pick? It's absolutely ridiculous. And do you know who else we have on the roster for that wide position? Darren Smythe can be a decent 3rd tight end, but moving a 30-year-old player into a role that's so physically demanding, requiring so much inline blocking against linebackers and defensive ends, isn't exactly a recipe for success. Smythe's blocking ratings haven't even been better overall in the running game than Kmet's. But here's what really bothers me about this proposal. It completely ignores the fact that we need TWO, quality tight ends, for Johnson's system to work. Kmet will be playing that Y position, the inline tight end, working in tandem with Colston Loveland. Can you imagine the matchup nightmare that combination can create? Loveland brings that element of athleticism and speed, while Kmet brings reliability and experience. Together, they can create situations where the defense simply doesn't have enough players to cover all the threats. And the proposal is to undo that combination for a 3rd-round pick. And do you know what else this proposal ignores? The fact that we don't know if Miami even wants to trade a 3rd-round pick for a tight end. The return could be fine in theory. But where's the evidence there's a real market for Kmet at that price? Where's the research on Miami's needs and their salary cap situation? But let me go deeper into why Cole Kmet is so valuable for what Johnson wants to do. In Detroit, Johnson constantly used multiple tight ends. T.J. Hockenson before being traded, Sam Laporta after the draft, multiple combinations that kept defenses completely baffled about what was coming. And do you know why it worked so well? Because when you've got 2 tight ends who can both block and receive, the defense can't tell if a power run, a screen pass, a seam route, or a route combination that creates picks and confusion is coming. Kmet has shown he can do all those things at a competent level. Kmet much more than an extra 3rd round pick next year to make that aspect of Johnson's offense work effectively. And if Miami needs a tight end, it's completely irrelevant to Chicago's interests. We shouldn't be helping other teams fill their needs when it means weakening our own offensive system. The second proposal is more intriguing, but ultimately also fails. It requires the Bears to give a 3rd-round pick to Jacksonville for running back Travis Etienne. And here's where I have mixed feelings that I want to explain in detail. On one hand, Etienne had a really good rookie year, averaging 5.1 yards per carry. Those are eye-catching numbers suggesting real talent. But after that, rookie year, he hasn't reached 4.0 yards per carry in his next 2 seasons. What happened? Was it natural regression, defenses adapting, or problems with Jacksonville's offensive line? Etienne managed to rush for over 1,000 yards in his first 2 seasons, which is respectable. But last year, he lost carries to Tank Bigsby and finished with only 558 yards. Was that because Etienne lost a step? Because Jacksonville's offense was so bad no one could produce? Or because the coaches just took a different direction? And you know what's the most ironic and potentially problematic thing about this proposal? The offensive coordinator from Jacksonville last year Press Taylor is now in Chicago as the passing game coordinator. If Jacksonville's offense was so inefficient that Etienne couldn't produce, do we really want to bring a running back from that same offense to work with the same coordinator? It doesn't seem like a really good fit for that reason alone. Though many said the same about Dandre Swift and Ben Johnson, and we know how that story ended. Sometimes a change of scenery and a different system can completely revitalize a player's career. But here's my biggest problem with this proposal. It's open to debate whether the Bears could find a better running back than Etienne next year with the third-round pick they'd trade. More importantly, if they choose to use a first- or second-round pick for a running back next year, they could definitely find one better than Etienne. And why rush? There isn't an urgent need for the Bears at running back for now, or at least until they have a better understanding of the running back group they currently have after the preseason games. We need to see what we have in Kyle Monangai. We need to see how Roshan Johnson can contribute in an expanded role. We need to see if Swift is really going to explode as we expect. Etienne's questionable numbers last year could be attributed to an inefficient and bad Jaguars offense. A reality check. He will be going to the Bears, where his offensive coordinator from last year, Press Taylor, is the passing game coordinator. It doesn't seem like a really good fit for that reason alone, but many said the same about Dandre Swift and Ben Johnson. But ultimately, the Bears need to see what they have in their current group before chasing a running back who has questionable numbers, is in a contract year, and would cost much more cap space next season with a second contract than drafting their own running back would cost, who trades a third-round pick to get a running back they'd have for a year, because that's exactly how long they'd have him, unless they wanted to pay an excessive amount for a veteran running back. And that's not a desirable option in today's NFL, where the value is in running backs on rookie contracts or low-value contracts. Etienne were a proven elite-level talent. Then maybe it would be worth the risk. But with his inconsistent production, with questions about his fit in the system, and with the fact that he'd be just a one-year rental, it simply doesn't make sense from a long-term roster-building perspective. But do you know what's my real problem with BOTH proposals? It's that if Pro Football Network really wanted to help the Bears with a trade proposal, they should have tried to find a pass rusher. Tano Kapasagnan, whom we picked up as a free agent, has lacked a lot of pass rush value throughout his career. The Bears could definitely use that third sack artist for a situational role. We need an edge rusher much more than we need to trade Cole Kmet, and much more than we need a back whose value will be questionable considering his cost for 2026. That should be the real priority for any trade we make, finding that pass rusher who can contribute immediately and help us generate consistent pressure against opposing quarterbacks. The pass rush has been a weakness for Chicago for years. We've invested in the offensive line, we've invested in receivers, we've invested in the backfield. But we still need that final piece that can get to the quarterback consistently. A third round might be exactly what we need to get that kind of player from a rebuilding team. And do you know why these proposals frustrate me so much? Because they show a fundamental lack of understanding about how Ryan Poles is building this roster. Poles isn't looking for quick fixes or short-term solutions. He's building a sustainable foundation that can compete for years. Trading Kmet for a third round goes against that philosophy because Kmet is exactly the type of player, young, talented, on a reasonable contract. You want a KEEP when you're building something special. And trading for 18 goes against that philosophy because it's a purely short-term move that doesn't improve our future. At the end of the day, these proposals represent exactly the kind of thinking that's kept Chicago in mediocrity for years. Reactive moves that don't consider the big picture. Decisions that sound good on paper, but ignore the realities of the salary cap and roster-building. I trust that Ryan Poles will stay focused on his long-term plan and won't be tempted by these kinds of flashy moves that could damage what we're building here. Let me tell you something about these three stories in their entirety. Each represents something different, but equally important about this new Bears era. Swift and Moore's defense represent the warrior mentality and locker room cohesion we need. Burden returning healthy represents the bright future we're building. And these trade proposals represent exactly the kind of temptations we need to resist if we want to build something lasting. DJ Moore sees something special in Swift, and if a receiver of that caliber, with that experience, is willing to publicly back him, then I'm betting on Swift too. Luther Burden is finally healthy and ready to show exactly why we drafted him and why the medical staff was so careful with his recovery. And as for those trades, I have complete confidence that Ryan Poles will continue to make the right decisions. For this organization long-term, do you think Swift is going to have an explosive 1,000-plus yard season with this improved offensive line and the extra motivation to prove the critics wrong? Do you think Luther Burden can be that versatile secret weapon we need for Johnson's offense to reach its full potential? And what do you think about those trade proposals, especially the completely crazy idea of moving Cole Kmet just when Johnson needs 2 tight ends for his system? Write to me in the comments because I want to know exactly what you think about each of these complex situations. This channel is our Bears family, and your opinions and analysis matter in building the best Chicago fan community on all of YouTube. If you think Swift is going to explode this season and silence all the haters, give this video a like. If you think Burden is going to be essential to our offensive success once fully integrated, subscribe because I'll be following every step of his development during camp and preseason. And don't forget, this is literally just the first week of practice with full pads on. There are still weeks of intense camp, 4 preseason games to really evaluate what we've got, and a full 17-game season ahead where we're going to see. If all these hopes and expectations become reality on the field, I'll be here every day, following every practice, analyzing every report, bringing you the latest news, the deepest and most detailed analysis, and the most honest and unfiltered opinions on absolutely everything happening with our Chicago Bears. Subscribe right now. Like this video. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a single update. And I'll see you in the next video to keep living and breathing Navy and Orange together. The Bears forever.